I'm joined now by Professor Chris Isike, Director of the African Center for the Study of the United States at the University of Pretoria. I can ultimately think of no better man to have this conversation with, Professor. So thank you so much for the time then when it comes to this. How worried should we be, if at all?
Well, thank you, Arabile, for having me, and good afternoon to your viewers. Should we be worried? I'll say not. Remember, this is not new. Trump tweeted something like this in 2018, and there was a flurry of responses here and there. But it's typically, I would say, his comment on truths. On his truth media yesterday about this is unfortunate, but also very misinformed, just as it was in 2018. He doesn't know much about the Appropriation Act, and he also doesn't know how much aid or not that South Africa receives from the United States, and why he thinks that that is enough in itself to threaten the constitutional and territorial integrity of South Africa as a sovereign country.
Yeah, I mean, so the big worry would ultimately just be the fact that the misinformation affects what other people then go on to think of South Africa, and it's all the other allies that perhaps should be of greater concern. Is that where we should be looking, actually? Not necessarily to the United States, but that ensuring that we bring out the right message when it comes to that Expropriation Act, and that people understand it correctly globally.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, my first reaction when I saw Trump's tweet was to say, look, if I'm President Ramaphosa, I would not even respond. I would not dignify him with a response. However, on reflection, I realized that it would be useful, it would be an opportunity for South Africa to clarify the appropriation bill and what South Africa is about in that regard. And that's exactly what the president did. He did it very well. And so the essence of the president's response is to also inform and educate people about what that appropriation bill is about, and the fact that South Africa is a constitutional democracy, and it is rooted, its constitutionality is rooted in social justice and equality for all, everyone who lives in the country. And it is something, these are ideals that even America should begin to learn from when you consider the history of racism in that country.
There used to be, within Donald Trump's first term, there was a saying that once floated around, and it was, take Donald Trump seriously, but don't take him literally. And the reason for that was primarily because of his whole build the wall saga, where he had planned to build a wall between the United States and Mexico, for example. And now he's issued out these tariffs against Mexico and Canada, and then that 10% as well on China. Are we still at a point where we need to take him seriously? Because he can, of course, do damage, but not literally, because he won't necessarily understand the reasons for what he's doing completely, or that he just perhaps at times shoots from the hip.
He shoots a lot from the hip, and it's useful to ignore him as Trump just talking. But at the same time, I think it's important to take him seriously because of his position. He's the leader of the free world, and what he says or does not say is important, right? So for example, there are those who can analyze this from a racial point of view and ask the question of whether, if this was land being taken from black South Africans to be given to white South Africans, whether he would even bother to tweet, or he would even praise it as a good government initiative. I mean, Africans are dying in the DRC. Did he tweet anything about Africans? Maybe if it was white people being killed in the DRC, he would tweet about it. So that's to tell you who Trump is and what he's about. And I hope that it will help some of us in the continent to qualify our support, because there is broad-based support, not just in South Africa, but across the continent at a people level for Trump, sometimes based on misinformation about who he really is and what he stands for. So I would agree with you that he should be taken seriously because of his position, and sometimes some of these positions get mainstreamed into policy, and especially in this second term that he has, so much power with having both houses and winning the popular vote. He feels that he has a mandate, so he's more stronger. So we should take him seriously. However, South Africa has nothing much to fear from him in terms of cutting aid, because South Africa can really do without the less than 20% of aid on PEPFAR that comes to the country.
Yeah. Professor, you perhaps know this saying better than most as well. I mean, George Orwell in his book Animal Farm speaks about how power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you consider that you have somebody who has such great power in the US context by owning 5 companies already, one which is a more than $1 trillion company in Elon Musk, who of course has South African roots, is it a case of him perhaps offering this kind of influence to impact what the president says? What is your assessment?
Yes, well, the first tweet he did in 2018 was a result of what he got from Tucker Carlson, a Fox News news anchor. Tucker Carlson is a conspiracy theorist, big supporter of Donald Trump. And this time the question is, who did Donald Trump hear about this bill from? And apparently he heard about it only on Sunday and immediately tweeted it. This is kind of knee-jerk reaction, the kind of person he is. So the question is, who told him? Was it AfriForum? Was it Musk? We do not know. The point is, the output is showing us that he's not well informed. He's misinformed, and this is where the response of the president to clarify things as he did becomes important.
Yeah, and that's going to be the key question mark, because it's about who's in the president's ear at this stage that really determines a lot of what he does and whether his ideas come to fruition. Do you believe he has the kind of people around him that are, shall we say, willing to listen, willing to understand, willing to take in information and disseminate it then correctly?
Well, in his first term, he was very ill-prepared. He hired a lot of people that did not do him service. His criteria for appointing people this time is basically loyalty, people that are determined to do what he wants, who believe in his agenda. So he has a lot of those around him. Some of them are very competent. But the question is, if America First is the doctrine that informs a lot of the policy thinking, both domestically and in terms of foreign policy, if that is the doctrine that defines what they do, all these advisors, the question is about whether putting America first will not eventually put America last when it comes to world affairs. So those are the questions, those deep philosophical questions that analysts need to begin to ponder on, and even those in the administration themselves. What is it that really makes America great? Isolationism, withdrawal from the world through withdrawal from the WHO and the Paris Accord, and who knows what else is going to withdraw from in the next 2 or 3 years, right? Do these things make America great? Do they make America strong, or they actually eventually will make America weak? Those are questions that they need to answer, and he's got a lot of people who need to ponder on these questions and begin to advise him properly. But the problem again is, even when you do advise him, Trump is not one to listen to sound advice so long as it doesn't align with what he believes is good for himself and for his country. So we'll just have to wait and see. And he's working very fast now. Yeah. You see, with speed, because he knows that in another 2 years, when we go into the midterm, things can change. Yeah.
Prof, I've got 30 seconds. Does Africa need to then reconsider its stance when it comes to the United States? Not just South Africa, Africa.
Absolutely. I am one for saying that Africa should stop depending on any one of these, whether it's the United States, China, or Russia, and begin to look more inwards. We have what it takes, both in terms of human and material resources, to do right by ourselves. We just need to govern ourselves properly. That's all.
Governing ourselves properly, the ultimate key here. Prof. Chris Isike, thank you so much for the time this afternoon. Really appreciated. The Director for African Center for the Study of the United States at the University of Pretoria.